The page is turning. Here's what the Ku Klux Klan Grand Dragon said. If we, the Klan, don't get a permit to march, we'll just be tourists that day. We basically want to do is make sure that nobody messes with the Alamo. We'll just be going as individual American citizens. We don't want any communist trash like that messing with the Alamo. Basically, you have a city manager here that has no idea what the Constitution of the United States stands for. We have a legal right to march with police protection or without. We are not any legal group and we are not violent. We came down here as an anti-communist group. And the KKK pretty much took it on the nose that day. Again, from an original source, this time an editorial called "Keep KKK Away from the Alamo." We have bad news for the Ku Klux Klan. The San Antonio Police Department can defend the Alamo from anyone, including communists. We don't need the KKK to be our watchdog. In fact, the KKK at the Alamo would be a sacrilege. The KKK stands for all the repugnant things that the heroes of the Alamo did not: bigotry, hate, narrow minds, and anti-patriotism. The Alamo is a religious shrine, and the KKK is anything but an organization of God. We offer no apology for our dislike of the Klan. It is an organization that uses Americanism wrongfully, even though we realize that the Constitution of the United States gives the KKK the right to spew its prejudice over the streets of San Antonio. Every effort should be made to assure that this repulsive group does not take over the facilities which belong to correct thinking, tolerant American citizens. Okay. So they tried several other public displays the KKK did over the years, and they were usually met with jeering crowds, people with signs, KKK stay away, go play somewhere else. As a coda to this, at least in 1983, there was another group with a local agenda that appeared on the scene. It wasn't really related to the Alamo site, but a local nudist organization wanted to parade downtown on the same day as the Klan in order to protest against the Klan's uniforms. The leader of the organization called the Klan's robes and other regalia obscene, saying they symbolize racism, murder, lynchings, and the violence of the Klan's past. This march was canceled due to legal problems, proving once again, and this is quoting from the source, not the article, that the community standards can restrict the use of the First Amendment. And the Klan had another plan, a defense of the Alamo March plan in '84, but they canceled it and moved it to Houston in order to protest, quote, against homosexuality.
Right.
So as a launching place for discussion of what the Alamo is, I guess my thing here, what I'm trying to get at is, here's a place that's a historical artifact, right? The Alamo is a social place. Is it a symbol of white imperialism? Is it a symbol of liberty? Can it be both at the same time? And let's go back even further. Why can't we call it a symbol of the oppression of the native peoples of Texas, the Caddo and the Kickapoo
Absolutely.
and the other native folks who were there before the Spanish explorers came? It's what I would call, I guess, a negotiated social place. And the fact that we discuss it every year, it seems like something like this comes up. May 31st of 2020, the Alamo cenotaph was vandalized. This was the same cenotaph. We talk about this story that Ozzy Osbourne peed on the Alamo. He didn't pee on the Alamo. He peed on the cenotaph, which is the statue outside the Alamo, the big carving. The quote, Texas Freedom Force stood guard over the cenotaph. Graffiti with the words "white supremacy, profit over people" had appeared on the cenotaph. And there's some great YouTube videos of this. In April of 2020, right before it was vandalized, the police patrolled Alamo grounds after the Texas Land Commissioner, George P. Bush, had been monitoring social media, noting that there was going to be some protests at the Alamo. So I'm amazed that this little building in the center of our hometown is so many things to so many people. And when it comes to questioning the dominant history of what that little building does, I mean, it goes back hundreds and hundreds of years. And it is still questioned to this day. And I think that's what we do in a healthy society, is question what things mean. And the fact that you can get up as a KKK member and say what you want, hey, good. But it doesn't mean that you are immune from criticism, right? And
Exactly,
that's what we forget. And that's what's being forgotten today, that your right to say what you mean does not mean that you have the right to be free from someone coming in and saying, no, you're full of shit.
Right,
And
exactly. Yeah.
we absolutely have the right to call you on your crap. I've got some sources for this, but I'll just run through some sources real quick. Most of these come from the good old San Antonio Light, the long lost San Antonio Light, which went out of business in 1992. Cahill and Sharp's Alamo Jeers Klansmen, Davison's Klan Foes Chuck Clothes, Davison and Woods Klan Vows to Guard the Alamo, Rial and Obregon Alamo Maoist found guilty, Siskin Woods Protest Abuse of Chicanos, Woods Alamo Invaders released. Also some uncredited articles. Alamo Maoists slain in LA, bed sheets on parade, keep KKK away from the Alamo, KKK to march against homosexuals. Cody King on ksat.com, May 30th, 2020, an online article. KPCRradio.iheart.com, June 15th, article by Ken Webster Jr., a YouTube video of the San Antonio riot defending the Alamo 2020, published on May 31st, 2020. Excuse me. And my own master's thesis, Remembering the Alamo, Social Energy and the Construction of Place, from 1998. This has long been a fascination of mine, our little building in downtown San Antonio.
That's awesome. Yeah, I mean that story, it got so much press because the past couple of years, I think both Dan Patrick and Greg Abbott came out. There's a book that came out that basically, I think accurately portrayed, Jim Bowie, David Crockett. These are the heroes of the Texas, of Texas history, right? And it turns out they're flawed individuals, many of whom owned slaves or may have been pro-slavery, earlier in their life. And Patrick, I know Patrick just blew a gasket about this being taught, and it's the same ridiculous argument that politicians in Texas and then Ron DeSantis, I know in Florida, is having a fucking embolism over critical race theory. It's just history. It's why is this a problem? It's free speech. It's stuff that needs to be taught in the classroom. We're not trying to make little Bobby feel guilty for the fact that he's white. This is just part of history. So why is this hard? It seems like there will always be folks that want to intentionally skew things in their favor, like history is a competition. I don't get it. It's definitely very peculiar that people will fight over these icons and try to claim, oh, it's mine. No, it's mine. Well, it's both. The truth is always in the middle.
And I think as long as we continue to have these discussions in a civilized way, we're doing all right, because it's at least an acknowledgement that, okay, there's something going on here we need to talk about. I think the big winners in this, are the folks and the companies who get to use the word Alamo
right
in their corporate branding. And we can think of many businesses in San Antonio that use Alamo because it has become a corporate.
Sure.
I mean, the Alamo Dome, for Christ's sakes, right? I mean, the last home team that played at the Alamo lost. So I'm not sure why you would name your stadium.
They lost by a lot.
Yeah. But beside the point, I mean, you can go to the Alamo, and I still do when, I took my sons there. There is a feeling there when you're there because you know that you're standing on history.
Right. Sure.
And that's a complex history. It's not an easy to tell history. It's a difficult history. History, you said it's just history. It's just history is correct. And history is very complicated, right? I mean, it can get very, very complicated. And I'm speaking as a non-historian. I'm speaking as just someone who grew up with all these legends and wanted to know more about them. And I just find, I love the fact that when I brought up the KKK, you just rolled your eyes. That
Right.
Suddenly all these people who've been defending the Alamo vocally against the communists were now like, well, the KKK, oh, the KKK agrees with us. We shouldn't have communists. Well, that's not right.
Right. The enemy of my enemy is my friend. I mean, history and conflict, happily and repeatedly creates strange bedfellows, right? And so, be careful who you want to have on your side. And again, look at anything like, for instance, just the Civil War. I mean, when you look at that conflict, how that conflict and how it is portrayed through history after the fact, folks from the South, many of them will happily tell you that the Civil War had nothing to do with slavery.
It was all states' rights. Yeah.
Right. It was all
the great lost cause.
Yeah. Right. Exactly. Yeah. No representation. You're just taxing us and taking advantage of us. And slaves had nothing to do with it. That's complete bunk. So when the KKK is involved or nudists are involved, you can roll your eyes. Unless they're nude KKKists, in which case I'm all for it. But
the best pop culture representation I've ever seen on this, I even hesitate to call it pulp culture, is a film I really like called Lone Star. Have you ever seen it? But directed by John Sayles. Chris Cooper, the late Elizabeth Pena's in it. Really fantastic film. Matthew McConaughey, it's one of his first big films, but it's set in this fictional town in South Texas. And there's this great, I think it's a school board meeting where they're fighting over the meaning of certain things. And it's basically, they're essentially fighting over what some people are calling critical race theory.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
It's not critical race theory, but it's what people are calling critical race theory. And there's this great scene where this guy says, we needed Texas to be independent so you could make a fortune in the cotton business. And people don't like to hear that there are economic underpinnings for liberty, right? Or independence.
Right.
And I don't know. It's something I think about often. And I haven't thought about this Alamo piece in a long time, but I've wanted to cover it because, I spent time writing my thesis and I've always wanted to do something with some of the chapters in it. And this was one on it, the day that the communists tried to take over the Alamo. So there we go.
Oh, that's awesome. Nice job.
Thanks.
Well, I think we wrapped another one. Thanks for listening,
Woo!
folks. We will be back again soon. Check out dreamidiots.com and let us know what you think.
Yep. Sounds good. Have a good week, everybody.
Bye.